First of all, just to say, on behalf of my executive colleague Paul Wappett and myself, what a delight it is to be here tonight and to be working with an outstanding colleague in Tony, whose concept this was, and we were delighted to work with him on that, and also to acknowledge the chairman of CGA as well. From the point of view of this organisation, just a message to Catherine. You mentioned high-priced accountants. Accounting has double entry system. If you have a high-priced accountant, you get high value outputs. So let's not forget the fundamental principles. But what we would like to say tonight is that the issues around the topics covered today in today's panel session and in the equivalent session in Australia a couple of weeks ago is central to the collaboration that we need to work on, particularly in economies that are so similar. And to a great extent, what we're suffering from now is the cost of being sophisticated, mature economies. And the comments we made today reflected the fact that there are emerging economies with fire in their belly that economies like ours hasn't known since post-war times, and that ultimately their focus is on driving their business. Our focus seems to be on navigating regulation. And I think that's the cost of maturity, and we need to increasingly collaborate and discuss issues around that. From the point of view of the equivalent forum in Australia, similar to today, we had participants including politicians from government and opposition, the head of the main corporate regulator, representatives from the banking sector, industry, and representatives of CME as well. Australia doesn't have a pocket dynamo representing SME quite like what I've seen today. You should be very proud from what I've seen. Tony was a key contributor in that discussion and shared some valuable insights on the operation and success of the Business Development Bank of Canada and best practice in red tape regulation. And in fact, our opposition spokesperson spoke about that model in the Australian media the next day, and they were chasing Tony, as I recall, that afternoon on issues like that as well. But some of the ideas that were included in that discussion, some of which Tony may have covered, is the introduction of potentially universal criteria for small business lending, the introduction of an equivalent type proposal in Australia, at least for the Business Development Bank you have here, a joint effort on the relationship building between small business, government and banks, and we see professional associations having a lead role in perhaps putting that together. That the government should pay either small business to purchase an upgrade of accounting software that makes their processes more simple, or to subsidise the manufacture of that software as a way in which to tangibly help small business. To think about regulation before legislation, because you can believe in the principle of regulation, but the devil's in the detail in the legislation. And how do we stop getting to the legislation before we fully understand? There were some quotes that day. Tony mentioned the bankers' quotes. There were some others in there, some of which I can't share with you, of course. They were so colourful. Not really. The Australian Chamber of Commerce, it's not just the bureaucratic cost associated with filling out a form. Regulation changes behaviour, so it has a wider economic impact. Our minister, I always like breaking down barriers to entry, to banking, to groceries, whatever. And our head of our Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, we are not out of the global financial crisis, we are not out of the world's financial troubles, but let's have a reality check and understand things will change, and that will change the profile of bankers and lenders, and clearly they're a key stakeholder. Finally, we drew a poll at CPA Australia in the month that we had this session with respect to regulation, tax and access to finance. And regulation ranked highest by a long way. Now, from an accounting body point of view, that surprised us. We thought tax would be number one, because we do feel rather passionately associated with that concept. But it was regulation, and that's something that we keep hearing. So we're working on, at the end of this program of these two round tables, is putting together some policy ideas that both Canada and Australia can share, to look to leaders such as yourselves to help us advocate those principles. And the final comment is the contribution that small business makes to both our economies is not matched by our advocacy skills to government. And we're here as part of a group to assist in perhaps giving a better influence mechanism for small business that are fundamentally the contributors to our economy. Thank you very much.